Just so you know, this episode of Lifted contains some explicit language. Hello, and welcome to Season 2. This is Lifted by Rise Collaborative.
There's something very powerful in getting knocked down and getting back up again, but also in knocking somebody down in the first place.
The podcast profiling the people and perspectives of Buffalo and Western New York. This episode,
it was a space for women to be unapologetic, and I just thought that was the coolest thing I had ever seen.
roller derby. Hear it after this. Try It Distributing is bringing you the best local craft beer and cider in Western New York from breweries like 12 Gates, 42 North, Big Ditch, Blackbird Cider, Community Beer Works, Flying Bison, Labatt Brewhouse, New York Beer Project, Pearl Street Brewery, and Resurgence. Whew, that was a really long list. We love our beer here in Western New York. Buffalocal, real Buffalo beer. The Queen City Roller Girls is a roller derby league in Buffalo, New York. They got started in 2006, and back then they were based in North Tonawanda, New York, at a place called the Rainbow Rink. Now, it all began with just a handful of skaters, but the sport was so popular that the team quickly grew, and so did the amount of spectators paying to watch them play. So in 2015, the team relocated to the waterfront complex Riverworks in downtown Buffalo. Nowadays, the Queen City Roller Girls have around 120 members, give or take. But that's enough for 3 home teams and 2 travel teams, plus a rookie squad and the skating and non-skating officials. Yeah, it's quite an operation. Skaters usually adopt a different name from their own, and for some this derby name is a persona. It allows them to project a part of themselves that might stay under the surface in everyday life. Today we're going to hear from one of the skaters of the Queen City Roller Girls. By day, she works as a librarian, but by night, she's co-captain of home team, the Devil Dollies.
I think that in a lot of ways, derby is a space for women to be transgressive. I just had practice last night, and there's always a conversation about like, ooh, I smell bad today. Like, oh, my sports bra can just stand up on its own. It's gross. And it's a space for women to have bodies, to occupy their bodies, and to have all of the natural grossness of bodies. I am a huge fan of the Alien movies and Sigourney Weaver, but it actually took me months to come up with my derby name. My name is Becca Bly, but I also go by Sigourney Cleaver. So there's that line in Aliens, "Get away from her, you bitch." It made a lot of sense and it felt right. So when I finally came up with Sigourney Cleaver, I was like, oh, that's perfect.
Get away from her, you bitch.
There is somebody that I was in graduate school with. She plays for our chartered A-level team. She goes by Librarian. And again, we were in library school together, and there was a whole crew of us that went out to a game at Rainbow Rink. And I saw it, and I thought, this is it. Nothing has ever made more sense. And I researched it to death. I looked up like, oh, what are the skates like? What do you need to do it? And you need health insurance. And it just wasn't financially feasible for a long time. And I saw this same person, I saw Brawl, as we call her, at a librarian function, some seminar somewhere. And I said, oh, I always wished I had done that. And she was like, so do it. And there was a boot camp that started a couple months later, and I did it. It was a space for women to be unapologetic. And I just thought that was the coolest thing I had ever seen. I always take a vacation day on a game day, and one of my very best friends, Celery Stalker, but we just, there's always a nickname of the nickname. Celery and I always get breakfast somewhere, some kind of Greek diner. I love a good chicken souvlaki breakfast. But I'll wake up, I have my coffee, I do my braids, like I do 2 French braided pigtails, and then we go out for breakfast. And then I'll come home, take care of the dogs, do my makeup. I always really take my time doing my makeup, or listen to music that really hypes me up. Anything that's kind of driving and hype and energetic, I really like. And you always have to get to a game about 2 hours early. I probably get there 2.5 hours early because at a certain point, the adrenaline starts to kick in. Roller derby is a full contact strategic game played on roller skates. So, 10 women take the track. 4 on each side are blockers, and 2 start behind a particular line, and they have stars on their helmets, and they are called jammers. The whistle will blow, and the jammer's objective is to make their way through that mass of blockers. The blockers are playing offense and defense at the same time. Whoever makes it through first is considered the lead jammer. That means that she has control of the clock. Now she is in a scoring position. They both want to get back around the track because for every opponent that they pass on their second pass through, they get a point. Being a jammer can be a very lonesome thing because you're the only one out there at a time doing what you do versus your teammates are all together in a group of 4 and they all know each other and they practice together all the time.
All right, fans, making their debut tonight with their great new uniforms. Check them out, the pink and black attack. Let's give it up for the Devil Dollies.
And I just try and keep the game in mind and not get distracted by the crowd.
And they're off.
There's a lot of, oh shit. But I might try and focus on, oh man, I'm trying to think of what I'm thinking about. It's really hard.
And Sigourney Cleaver through lead jam, Devil Dollies.
I mostly try and focus on breathing because that is something that a lot of jammers forget to do because there's just so much chaos out there on the track. I try to keep on top of my fitness, especially as a jammer. I need to be able to have endurance and everything, so I try and work out a lot.
Sigourney Cleaver to get through 4 points for the Dollies, and we have a lead change.
There's this idea, when you think about women's sports, a lot of times you only really think about one body type, like volleyball. There is a body type for volleyball and for soccer and that kind of thing. But the greatest thing about derby is you're on wheels. So you don't necessarily have to be able to run really fast. Any body can find what works for them in roller derby. The aesthetic, I would say, is somewhere between... We're in that middle ground between tutus and spandex, right? Old school derby was tutus and tall socks and gritty makeup and stuff. I think we've reached the point that it's about whatever makes the individual feel strong. There are going to be people who have more time invested than I do that have seen the greater overall change that I mentioned about tutus to spandex as kind of the Reader's Digest version of things. But for myself, I would say that we have seen more emphasis on treating it as a sport. So at an international level, trying to get it up on one of the ESPNs is a really huge deal. In my time with Queen City Roller Girls, I have seen the change from moving from Rainbow Rink in North Tonawanda to the construction and now our, residence at Riverworks. That has been a huge change for us, for the sport locally. It's an awesome venue. Nobody else in the world has a Riverworks. And so we're able to bring in crowds. We just had our home opener on the 5th and we completely sold out. I have found a lot of strength in derby. The idea that you can fall and get back up is, of course, a fantastic metaphor for most of life. I know what it is to own my space and stand in a way where I am not apologizing for existing. And I think that's a huge part of the evolution of a skater is you stop apologizing for not being good at something and you start working at being better.
You've been listening to Lifted by Rise Collaborative. And another special thank you to Try It Distributing for sponsoring this episode. Episodes of Lifted are released each week, so hit subscribe and add us to your podcast library so you never miss one. It's free. And finally, a quick thank you to those of you who left a review of Season 1 on your podcast app. It helps more people to hear positive stories of Buffalo and Western New York. Lifted is produced by me, Holly Kirkpatrick, for Rise Collaborative.